Recordings are checked on. And we're live.
And we are live. And is it live or is it Memorex? Hello, Ericka.
Hello, Robert. How are
So
you?
I am good. Nice to be back on Of the People. I miss you.
Yes. I missed you.
Yeah.
It's weird
So,
when you're not here.
well, I think Lori sat in. I think Dr. Feynman sat in just fine,
She's great.
as
We
long as she
love
doesn't
Lori.
replace me. But you know how I like to start with sort of where's the outrage? So
Yeah.
my favorite is, do you know who Jim Acosta is, the
Oh my
former
God.
CNN reporter?
Yeah, he
You
quit.
know,
What did they put him to the
right.
midnight spot and then he quit?
Right. Yeah. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. But so and now because Trump, the Trump White House is moving the AP, they're not allowed on Air Force One because they refuse to call it the Gulf of America versus the Gulf of Mexico. He's trying to organize a boycott of the established reporters, to not cover any presidential events, as if you don't have the New York Times or the Washington Post or CNN, you'd be losing anything.
That is in okay. Okay. So just push everybody to alternative media even further. Everybody's already leaving all of these outlets anyway. You know what? Good riddance.
Look,
Uh
here's the truth.
Boycott them.
The truth is the reason Trump won was because he found a way to go around the establishment media.
Exactly.
So if they remove themselves, although obviously, look, if you get fired from CNN, that's about as low can be because they already have almost no ratings to begin with. But
I
the thing
mean,
that I am constantly amazed at, the, you know, the people objecting to renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America are the same people that were okay renaming the Cleveland Indians and the Washington Redskins, renaming, Aunt Jemima syrup, right?
Fort
Because they
Hood in
Fort
Texas.
Hood and all the
Yep.
military bases, but you
Yep.
can't rename, a body of, just in any event. All right. So that's my kvetching to start the show for the day. And ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We have singer, songwriter, pop star John Ondrasik, Five for Fighting, going to join us a little later on, right in the beginning of the show. But right now, let's roll them, Ericka.
Whoop.
Run. Hello, and welcome to Of the People. Democracy versus bureaucracy. Ladies and gentlemen, let's cut to the chase. As we are now seeing under Trump 2.0, the federal government is a bloated, wasteful bureaucracy that's only interested in self-preservation and promoting a woke agenda. And how anyone can defend the monstrosity that is the federal government as if it's some sort of sacred institution is honestly politics at its worst. The question was really never whether the bureaucracy and, quote, the administrative state exists, but how long we are willing to let it continue to bleed America dry while failing miserably at the very tasks that it's supposed to handle. So let's talk a little bit about waste. And by waste, I mean jaw-dropping, abusive waste. Let's start with the Pentagon. The U.S. Department of Defense has failed multiple audits in recent years, and they literally cannot account for trillions of dollars. And we're talking about the Department of Defense, whose annual spending is more than most countries' GDP. And they admit they have no idea where billions, let's try that again, trillions of taxpayer dollars are going. As recently as 2021, the Pentagon couldn't account for $2.3 trillion of its own assets, notwithstanding what they left in Afghanistan. And that's the tip of the iceberg. This is our government who's supposed to win wars and keep us safe, and they can't even keep track of their own spending. Did anybody face any serious consequences for that? Of course not. But it gets worse the deeper you look. Let's look at federal contracting. The government hands out billions and billions of dollars to contracts to private companies every year. And more often than not, they're poorly managed, wasteful, and overinflated. And that whole, Lexus in the parking lot scenario? It's alive and well in federal procurement spending, where the contractors regularly deliver subpar products at inflated prices. And again, no real consequences. And then there is the famous or infamous F-35 fighter jet, if anyone remembers that perfect example. Originally priced at $233 billion, it is now overrun to $1.7 trillion, and it is still not fully functional. And yet, year after year, programs like these are defended as if failure, they can't fail because it would be such an epic problem. Well, it is an epic problem. And what really hits personally home for me is look at the VA, the Department of Veterans Affairs, which is another sacred cow of the federal government. And this one, folks, makes me mad because the VA is failing the very people who sacrificed their lives for this country. And we're talking about veterans who sometimes wait years for medical care, some even dying before they get the care that they need, all the same time that the VA's budget has grown exponentially over the years, and yet failing to deliver the proper care to our veterans. Why? It's simple, because the bureaucracy that runs the VA is bloated and inept and simply can't deliver the services it was designed to. So you have the bureaucrats and the union reps defending the agency, and their solution is what it always is. Just throw more money at it. That'll solve the problem. Throwing more money at education doesn't work. I defy anyone to show me an example where it does. And throwing more money at a bureaucracy surely doesn't work. And the truth of the matter is that our veterans deserve better, and this country owes them. And we are failing them because of bureaucratic waste and incompetence. Unless you think I'm not going to go there, let's talk about the ongoing defense of this woke federal civil service employees union and those things. This is not about ideology or social progress. It's about that these agencies only care and focus on their pet projects, diversity, DEI, quotas, and climate change. While the basic government functions like, I don't know, infrastructure maintenance, education, fall apart at the same time. Because the truth is that the federal employees are more interested in pushing their progressive social policies than actually solving the world's problems. And across government, we see that. The solution from the bureaucrats is always hire more people and spend more tax dollars. We call that OPM, other people's money, in this case, yours and mine. And no surprise who's defending the status quo, the Democrats and the unions. And they position themselves as some sort of champion of the people, but they're the ones that are clinging to the bloated, wasteful bureaucracy that's obviously broken. And rather than confronting these issues head on, they continue to defend the inefficiencies, and these bureaucracies are somehow untouchable. And like a broken record, they argue it's simple. Spend more money, invest more, and hire more civil servants. And simply they ignore the fact that the civil servants are the very same people that created and perpetuating the waste and failure to begin with, right? Defending a system that already doesn't work. So what's really happening here, it's not just about bad governance. It's a betrayal of the people, because the same people year after year are expected to foot the bill, that's you and me, for this endless cycle of waste, fraud, and inefficiency. And it's the same hard-earned dollars poured into the system that doesn't produce the results. And the reality is, and the reason Trump got reelected with a mandate, I might add, is if we don't start holding these bureaucrats accountable with real reform and transparency, we're allowing the very system that meant to serve us to rob us. Democracy means government by the people, and more importantly, for the people. But when politicians and unions defend a bureaucratic monstrosity that only works for itself, it's no longer democracy. It's really a parasite masquerading as a democracy. And it's long past time we stop pretending this system is working. The country can't afford to keep defending the waste and the fraud and the inefficiency. The American people just voted for a change for something better. And honestly, it's long past time that we demand it. And that's the monologue. Ericka, come on in. See what happens when you give me a week off? I become long-winded and I get angry.
There's a lot to be mad about right now, Robert, and it's understandable. Although we got a lot of wins, you know? I will say at least all of the stuff that we've all known forever is now being uncovered and brought out to the light. So,
speaking of being brought out into the light, that's a good intro to our very special guest.
Yes.
Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter, 2 albums, by the way, that have gone platinum. Song's been featured over, I don't know, a couple hundred movies and TV shows, and and I will tell you that I think that, John, you're one of the reasons that Justin Trudeau was finally pushed out. We'll talk about your hockey thing in a second.
Yep.
Most people don't, your thing for hockey. But ladies and gentlemen, very proud to have with us on Of the People, and proud that he was part of the inaugural Israel Appreciation Day. Singer, songwriter, Five for Fighting, John Ondrasik. Welcome to Of the People, John.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Ericka. Great to be with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. Now, before we get into anything serious, most people don't know where Five for Fighting came from. Now, I went to school in Montreal. I went to the original forum, so tabarnak, right? I mean, it was hockey. Everything was hockey. I did learn, by the way, I'm not a hockey guy, right? I tried hockey once. Somebody checked me into the boards. I went after them, and like 5 guys beat me to a pulp. I think I'm done with hockey.
Like Justin Trudeau.
I at least tried to play.
Wow.
But,
That's true.
So Five
He
for
was
Fighting.
too busy doing blackface to play
Right.
hockey.
Right. So Five for Fighting comes from where?
Well, for those who have watched the American-Canadian hockey game just the other night, you only needed to watch 9 seconds because there were 3
That's
fights.
right.
And in the NHL, if you fight, you're a bad boy and you get 5 minutes in the penalty box. But back in the day, in the late 90s, the male singer-songwriter did not exist. It was boy bands, Lilith Fair, grunge music, and the record label said, we need a band name. And I'd just gone to a hockey game. And of course, Robert, you remember the great Marty McSorley, who was Wayne Gretzky's bodyguard, who got in a couple fights. And I said, well, how about a band name called Five for Fighting, expecting them to hate it. And they're like, we love it. I go, you're crazy. Sounds like a heavy metal band. But here we are, 20-some years later, Five for Fighting, go Kings, go.
And for the people, 5 meaning it's a major penalty in hockey. You get 5 minutes in the box, as opposed to 2 minutes in the box.
Go to your room.
Exactly. So Ericka, I knew you didn't know that, so I did this for your edification.
I did not know that.
And for our listeners.
I did not know that. How do you get that? Like, do people generally know that it's a hockey reference?
You can tell where I am in relation to the equator by how many people know. The further north I go, people get the Five for Fighting thing. Of course, in Canada, they all love Five for Fighting. They don't even care about the music. But I'm a SoCal boy. I kind of grew up with the Kings, and when Wayne came, big hockey, big sports fans. So it's actually had a great kind of payoff in that I've been able to play some incredible events: Daytona 500, outdoor hockey games, all-star games, Monday Night Football. And you know what? John Ondrasik doesn't play those gigs, but Five for Fighting does. So it's been worth it at the end of the day.
That I love it. Okay, can I ask maybe a salacious question?
Of course.
Okay, this is not on the Robert. Don't get mad at me. Okay, so what is your take on the America-Canada hockey game that just happened last week, where everybody was freaking beating each other up the whole time?
It was the greatest thing I've ever seen. Perhaps
second greatest, 1980.
Well, you didn't let me finish. I was going to say perhaps the best thing for hockey since the miracle. Since the miracle. I mean, I think, and again, a lot of the Canadians play on our favorite teams. They play on the Kings. Right. And so, it's just a wonderful spectacle. It's wonderful for people who are not hockey fans that kind of got a look into the game. We all saw the NBA All-Star Weekend was a disaster. So people were flipping around. They found an incredible game. And look, those guys playing for their country, half of them are injured. Many can't play Thursday in the final because they've played so hard. Can you imagine an All-Star game where people care so much about playing for their country? So I have a lot of respect for these players because, so many other sports, they wouldn't even give it the time of day. But it's fantastic. There should be a great game Thursday night. Let's hope the U.S. wins, and let's hope they don't have 3 fights in the first 9 seconds, because I don't know if we'd have enough players after that.
There'd be nobody left. There's going to be the goalie and one guy on the other team.
And I was in Montreal at McGill at 1980, not at Whiteface, right? Not when they were playing, but we had a massive crowd, mostly of Americans, and it was still brings chills how special that evening was. I mean, it was just, the emotions of hockey. In any event, we didn't bring you on to talk about hockey, but I had to start with the Five for Fighting. you have been a singer-songwriter, Grammy nominated, I might add, ladies and gentlemen, for 30 years, 40 years. But your activism, you've always been engaged in the community and in service and things like that. But, I know, and you and I have talked a little bit off camera, especially with Israel Appreciation Day, but your activism really sort of took on a whole new meaning after October 7th, right? And you've been working with the hostage families. And we just read that the Bibas family, we just found out was the mother and 2 kids when they were in captivity were just murdered, and they're going to get the bodies back. I mean, how do you maintain your focus and your, what I would call positive outlook? I mean, you're driven, you're determined, you're trying to make a difference. And I think you do. But when you have news like that, I mean, it just, I don't know how to move the message when there's that kind of ugliness and brutality on the other side.
No, I hear you. It certainly, breaks your soul, breaks your faith in humanity, and it's a punch in the gut after punch in the gut. But I think a switch went off for me when I performed Superman at the Concert for New York after 9/11. I saw personally how music can be critical to a nation's soul, a nation's trauma. It wasn't just my song. It was The Who, Blowing the Roof Off Madison Square Garden, many artists. But I saw how music can matter in ways nothing else can. It can break through walls. It can break through nations. It can provide compassion, and somebody will listen to a song where they don't necessarily will listen to words. So I've seen how music is so important. And as you said, I've never been someone who stands on a soapbox and preaches my worldview. Celebrities that do that annoy me. But it really started with Robert after Afghanistan, with the Afghan withdrawal, abandoning our citizens, 13 soldiers killed, abandoning our Afghan allies. And I wrote a song about that called Blood on My Hands that kind of took on a life I can imagine. Went to Ukraine, did a song with Ukrainian orchestra. But October 7th was certainly different because it was like 9/11 all over again. And I really didn't have an intent on writing a song about it. As you said, there's no words, no song that can express the horror of that. Yeah. But when we saw the world, the media, the UN, the Rashida Tlaibs of the world, our college campuses, basically becoming Hamas allies, I could not be silent and wrote, "Okay, we're not okay." And it took on a life I could imagine. But to me, it's really about good versus evil. It's not about religion. It's not about a group of people. It's good versus evil. Israel's on the good side, and that's why I'm with them.
No, and I appreciate that. And that is profound. I guess where I have sometimes a hard time, in all candor, and you and I talked about this, the hostages. I lived through the Iran hostage crisis. The names of the hostages were there every day. The newspapers were calling for their release. Yes, there are Israeli hostages. But there's American hostages still. And yet, it's different now with President Trump in office. But we went through, how many, a year and a half, 500 days. Are we at 500 days now?
Yeah.
Right. And I used to say to people, "What hostages? There are no hostages." And they would look at me sort of, and they'd cock their head. And I said, if there were hostages, they would be on the front page of every newspaper on every day. The president would be calling for the release of the hostages. And it just wasn't there. And I don't understand the difference, right? I mean, it's just, and I think it comes down to something, because I want to talk about this whole anti-Semitism thing, is there seems to me a double standard when, Israel versus the world. And you mentioned the UN, especially at the UN.
Oh, yeah. That is like one of the most corrupt government organizations. Who takes anything they say seriously anymore?
No, I wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal about exactly what you're talking about. Look, we're old enough to remember a yellow ribbon around every tree that the hostages led the newscast every single night. There were 5 American hostages, and the fact that people didn't know their names goes back to my song, "We Are Not Okay." Something is broken in the culture. And I'll tell you a good illustration of that too. Imagine in an alternate universe, Israel were the maniacs. They were the bad guys. And they captured and took a bunch of people hostage. And there were Palestinian hostages in Israel. That would lead the news every night. That would be on CNN. They'd have a counter for days. That would be in the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, even, of course, the New York Times. But it just shows how the world has flipped on its head. We've lost our soul. We've lost our sanity. Unfortunately, Israel and Jewish people bear the brunt of that. But this goes way beyond Israel and Jewish people. It's pure Marxism. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
That's what's taking over our college campuses. But it is something that I think there's no excuse for. But like you said, we have got some wins. We're seeing sanity and common sense stand up again. And I do think there is a wave of conscience that's running across not just America, but the world. And I'm encouraged by that. But the fact that you're right, that we don't know the names of our hostages, along with, Newport USC students ripping their posters down, it's a disgrace. And there's been a lot of disgraces the last year and a half, but hopefully things are on the upswing.
Wow.
And I hope things are on the upswing. And I believe that they are. What do you make of the out-of-the-box proposal for, I would say, Judea, but the media would call it Gaza, right? I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, I really want to play the Trump Hotel Gaza. I look forward to that gig. Look, I think we've seen this pattern over and over again. We cannot allow Hamas, whatever you want to call them, the Palestinian Authority, to refit, retool, build more tunnels, start the cycle all over again across the border from Israel. It cannot happen again. And I think, Trump always tries to inflame the headlines, but it's negotiating tactic. And you already see results. You see Egypt, Middle Eastern countries coming to the table saying, well, no, we'll rebuild Gaza. So I think whatever it ends up being, you cannot have a death cult, a generational death cult existing across the border from Israel. You cannot. Israel cannot have that. And now finally, with Rubio and President Trump, J.D. Vance, Israel has a real ally in America. So I think you're going to get some big changes. There's not going to be people hamstringing Israel. We're not having Tony Blinken saying, well, if Israel doesn't change their ways, they're indistinguishable from Hamas. You don't have that madness. So look, I wait for results with Trump. I wait for results. I think the idea, though, and Netanyahu just said that yesterday. He said, you're right. The only way that we can have any sort of peace is to not have the death crawl across the border. And I think that will be the result, one way or the other.
Yep.
And, and the thing that always frustrated me was right after October 7th was the immoral equivalence coming out of the White House, right? And the concept of, well, Israel needs to have a proportionate response. And my response was, so you want Israel to burn babies alive, rape women, and cut off their genitalia? Would that be a proportional response? Right? I mean, it's so, it is refreshing. I want to, however, because I think this is so insidious, right? You play around the world. We just saw the Munich Security Conference in Germany. Obviously, I think Vice President Vance gave a blisteringly good speech.
Historic speech.
Churchillian, right? Yep. I mean, didn't quite have that lilt or accent that Churchill did, but it was Churchillian in its magnitude. I would certainly for the future.
I agree.
Europe, right?
I agree.
Right. But then you have, and Ericka, if you're still here, you mentioned Secretary of State Rubio, who just was on 60 Minutes, or maybe not 60 Minutes. She was on CBS.
Yeah.
The fact that they can pigeonhole something and get it so wrong. I want to play this real quick and get your reaction. I think you've probably seen it. And for our audience, this is basically where you have CBS anchor Margaret Brennan, who basically says that the Holocaust was brought around because free speech was weaponized. Right? I mean, that was the argument, and more wrong than you couldn't be. But if you haven't seen it, ladies and gentlemen, take a peek. Let's roll this one, Lord Redic.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And that the censorship was specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history.
I mean, where do you go with that? When the, we started with the whole Jim Acosta wanting to boycott the White House. God bless you, Jim Acosta. You get your ass fired from CNN. I don't know how much lower you can go than that. But
yeah, good night.
How do you combat that? You travel around the world. You play around the world. I will tell you that. So last, December, I was in Italy. I was in France. And the media there is worse than our media in terms of its anti-Israel, anti-Semitic positions, and we have this domestically.
Well, first, I have to give Marco credit. He was much more diplomatic than I would have been. And look, nothing in the media surprises me. The idiocy of the media. Look, CBS was the same news outlet that doctored Kamala Harris's interview because they knew that they were basically showing the behind the curtain. Later that night on 60 Minutes, as you probably saw, they interviewed some folks in Germany who will basically put you in jail if they don't like your tweet. And they never asked the question, who is picking what is offensive and what is not? Where does this lead to? So really, our media has, and we've known this. Look, this is the same media that covered up for Joe Biden's dementia for 3 or 4 years. So nothing surprising me there. But what does really concern me is exactly what J.D. Vance was talking about in Europe. Literally in Germany, there's a vice chancellor that has filed over 700 lawsuits, offenses against people that have called him an idiot. They are arresting people and putting them in jail. That should be chilling for everybody. This is not North Korea. This is not even Putin's Russia. This is Europe. And that should scare all of us. And thank goodness for J.D. Vance standing up and telling these folks what they didn't want to hear, because it not only maybe offends them, but what that does is give people that have a clear view about what free speech is, what freedom is, to empower them to speak up and stop this basically downfall of Europe. So,
and how much of this craziness is being funded by USAID? Now that we know that so much of the media in other countries is now being fed all this garbage nonsense too. Like, is this our fault? Is this actually our fault?
We saw that we spent $3 million supporting Hamas through different NGOs. So you're right. I think we hit the tip of the iceberg. And again, the most consequential thing out of this new administration may be what Elon Musk is doing, really pulling the cover off, decades of fraud, bureaucracy, and again, how do senators who make $100,000 a year have $60 million in the bank? I think all these questions that American people deserve an answer for. Look, if we can't audit the IRS, they should not be able to audit us. You talked about the Defense Department. It's like this again. I think with all the misery in the world, there's a lot of really great things happening, and that's why some on the left and the media are so scared. They're so scared because I think there's things that we can't even imagine yet that are coming down the pike. And America deserves to know. We need to know. We deserve to know what's happening, because if we don't know, we can't change it.
And the place that you can find that out is at the American Center for Education and Knowledge, our sponsor. Let's hear from them really quick, and we'll be right back
and we'll be back with John Ondrasik, 5 for Fighting.
Mr. John. All right, y'all, hang on.
America came into being based on a shared belief and a common set of values. Unlike other nations that were bound together based on common ancestry, race, or caste, we came into being based on a simple and shared set of ideals. That the power of government is based on the consent of the governed. That life, the freedom to live life on our own terms in our own way, free from government interference, and liberty, our most precious value, and the pursuit of happiness, which means we are free to pursue that which we choose, with the knowledge and courage to know that nothing is guaranteed to us in this life. Those values, America was founded on these basic inalienable rights: freedom to pray to God in our own way, freedom to think and speak freely without fear of punishment or harm, and freedom to gather in our places of worship and in our local taverns, and freedom to defend ourselves, our families, our homes, and our neighbors as we see fit. The American Center for Education and Knowledge is dedicated to protecting American exceptionalism anywhere and everywhere it is threatened. ASIC is a 501c3 and depends on your tax-deductible donations. Please help us continue our fight.
Dun, dun, dun.
So
And
you're,
we're back.
John, you're not the only one who's fighting. I'm just not doing it. We're just not doing it on the ice because I can't skate. So
I don't want to fight those guys on the ice either. I'll watch from the stands.
yeah,
I've never been on ice skates in my entire life. And
Don't
I grew
start
up in
now.
Vermont.
You lived in Vermont.
I know. It's shameful.
You mean
I
not even
it's like
skating on the
blasphemy.
pond?
Never. Nope.
Really? Okay.
I know.
I don't even want,
I know. It's like
I don't even
blasphemy
wanna
or
go there.
something. I don't know. It's a bit terrible.
anyways, ladies and gentlemen, singer, songwriter, John Ondrasik is back with us for another segment. John, before we get, I want to talk about this. I want to move away from politics. But before we do, because I want to talk about your Music Matters Challenge, which I think is really, I mean, like you said before the show, positive, uplifting, trying to do good as opposed to what we're talking about, which is sometimes depressing. But I want to go back to the United Nations because the two things that I have railed against for a long time is, number one, I think that the end game in the Middle East ends in Iran. And until you cut off the head of the snake, and it doesn't alleviate the China issue, right? That China is really, vying for hegemony. But I do like Trump's policy about if there can be a detente of sorts with Russia and you pull Russia a little further away from the Chinese orbit, that's helpful. But it ends in Iran. But the second thing is it also ends when you either reform or get rid of the United Nations. And here's why. Back in 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I don't know if anybody's ever read this.
Oh, yeah.
Great. I want your reaction to this because the preamble talks about, recognition of inherent dignity and freedom and justice and peace in the world for all. It goes into, these are my favorite. Article 5. No one shall be subjected to torture or cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishment.
Oh. Okay.
Now, does someone, and John, I'm teeing you up, John. Someone explain to me why the UN has not come out against the torture and hostage taking and, I guess keeping hostages and killing a mother and her two children would come somewhere into torture, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment. And we were talking about that double standard, right? And you can go on and on with this. It's not worth the paper it's written on, but the hypocrisy coming out of the UN is the other thing I think we need to change. What say you?
Of course. Look, you have a combination of Marxist, corrupt dictators there, as well as people like European leaders who are oppressee, wokies, and the inmates are running the asylum. And it'll be interesting what Trump does. I think he may wait till Stefaniak gets in there. Nikki Haley was very effective at the UN. And I think Stefaniak also is going to go tell it like it is. And look, many of these folks in the Middle East and other countries, they like a winner. Trump's the winner. So I think there'll probably be an attempt to save the UN and establish some sanity. On the other hand, if it doesn't, like some of these other international criminal courts, I think, Trump will defund it, pull out, maybe reconstitute another organization of sane countries. But I think they'll initially try to save it. And I'm looking forward to Stefaniak getting in there because she has every single day about the hostages. She gets it. And I think it's worth giving it a shot. But yes, of course, the UN, Amnesty International. Look, we talk about the Beavis family today, the tragedy of the kids. If the UN, organizations like Amnesty, the President of the United States on October 8th, 2023 would have said, you release the hostages tomorrow or we're coming for all of you, not just in Gaza, but in Qatar. Everywhere there are people supporting this death cult, we are coming for you. The Beavis family would still be alive, as would be all the hostages. So again, I think it's interesting to see what will happen because we've already pulled out of WHO, we've pulled out the Paris Accords, all these corrupt organizations, and the UN is next. And boy, we've all been railing about the UN for a long time, but just like we're seeing now, there'll be accountability. Hegseth just announced yesterday that there's going to be accountability for those who caused the evacuation of Afghanistan, like General Milley.
Oh, I missed that one. I missed that. What did he say?
He says that they've already selected congressional members who will run a full investigation into the withdrawal from Afghanistan and hold those who made the decisions, like General Milley, like General Austin, like Tony Blinken, responsible and accountable. And our Afghan vets deserve that, just like the world deserves accountability from these leaders at the UN that are basically Hamas sycophants. So I hope we have the same level of clarity in the next couple of years about exposing these people. And we know they're on the grift. We know they're getting paid. They're probably getting U.S. aid that have been leading this dark, disgusting chapter in the UN. And that will be a day when the world is a much better place. So let's hope the world keeps turning in the right way and the UN one day reflects all of the values that you just listed, Robert, in your initial charter.
Well, and I think one of the problems is that predators look for opportunities like this because they know that there's vulnerable people they can take advantage of. They know that there is money that they can launder. And that's why it's so, it would be nice. It would be nice if we could just have these entities that exist to do good things. But there's always people who are going to mess it up.
Well, I would put the blame at the media because frankly, if the media stood up and had any spine, they would basically call a spade. But no, Hamas knows that as soon as they make this attack and they go use human shields, here comes the BBC, here comes CNN, here comes all the international media. Robert, you were talking about the media in Europe. They have defenders, they have advocates, they have they have employees that are members of Hamas. So if the media had a soul, we would not be here and these organizations would not be able to flourish. But again, as we've seen, Jim Acosta has lost his viewers. The CBS has become a joke. Trump won despite 99.9% negative coverage from the media. So it is changing. And thank you, Elon Musk, for buying Twitter, because if he didn't do that, I don't think we'd be having this conversation.
Yeah, good point.
No, I think you're right. So listen, in the time we have left,
yes,
I want you to have the floor. Hold on.
Really quick. Just really quickly. Hang on.
Is it quick? Is it quick?
I brought up the Music Matters website. Okay.
Bring it up. So, we want to talk about this wonderful challenge you have put out there. And this is not the first year. You've done this for
Yes, we have. My feeling is that every child in America deserves a music teacher. My mom, when school funding was cut, came into our elementary school. She put on a musical West Side Story with all the kids. I was Tony. I was mom's son. But look, those kids 50 years later still talk about how that transformed their life. So what Music Fill My World is an organization to make sure every kid has a music teacher. And we do a contest every year called the Music Matters Challenge, where people can enter. They can do a version of their song, our song, Let Music Fill My World, that I wrote with some inner city kids from Chicago, and tell a story about how a music teacher made a difference in their life. And the winner, as you can see right there, can win some cash. They can win a school grant if your school wants to enter. But most importantly, we provide a full-time music teacher for a school in need that the winner chooses with us. We already have a full-time music teacher in Farragut Academy in Chicago from the first Music Matters Challenge. And our goal is we're not going to stop till every kid in America has a music teacher, because music is not extracurricular. It is critical.
Yes.
So what's the website?
LetMusicFillMyWorld.com. People can just click on there. They can listen to the song I wrote with these kids. They wrote the whole lyric, and they can enter the Music Matters Challenge. Anybody can enter. You don't have to be a great singer. It's frankly more fun if you're not. And people can make their videos, and more importantly, raise awareness for this critical cause. The two things that keep kids out of trouble, especially in inner city schools, is sports and music. So we have to guarantee that all our kids have a music teacher. Let them have their voice, let them sing their songs. And it's a lot of fun. And we look forward to doing this every single year with my partner, Kaylee Tullman from the Tullman Foundation.
I love it. And I just want to
awesome.
I just want to echo something you said earlier about the importance of art and music and why it matters to you. You know, artists are the ones who transmit the message, right? So whether it's music, movies, you know, paintings, whatever it is, artists are just like comedians are telling the story of the time. And if we just let all of the crazy lefties be the ones creating art, then we're going to get more of the same nonsense. And so I just love that you are using your gifts to help, you know, spread values that matter. Okay,
Ericka,
so sorry. Oh, go ahead.
You are exactly right. This is probably the most important point on this podcast, because we do not win this culture war without the arts. We don't get to kids on TikTok through a political speech, an article in the Wall Street Journal. The arts is how we get to kids, and we're losing that. And many people on the right don't understand that. One song is worth 100,000 speeches. We've seen that with my OK song. We see that with other songs. It breaks barriers. Millions of impressions for songs that are not even on the radio. So you're right. We have to organize with the arts. It's a weapon. It's a salvo. It's a soft weapon. And we're not going to win this culture war without it.
Yep. Okay, Robert, I know you had somewhere else
Sorry,
to go.
You put me on my most exciting point. Thank you,
Ericka, you were spot on. I mean, you were spot on. You know, I can't, you know, if you can't sing and you can enter, I might enter. Is there an age limit here?
Of course not. I look forward to both your answers. You guys could do a duet, you know?
Yeah. Oh, we could do. Oh, don't, dude.
Listen, in my household growing up with my father, he used to have an old tape, an Iowa reel-to-reel tape deck, and it was 6 hours of Broadway every Sunday. And it was a range of, you had to sing Broadway. You know, I'm sort of like Paul Robeson with my voice, right? But you had to sing Broadway to survive, you know, so I can do a mean version of Old Man River. That'd be about it.
Oklahoma, baby, whatever you got.
Oh, we're submitting. It's on now. Oh, awesome. Don't threaten me with a good time, okay?
I can't wait. Thank you, Ericka. You may win. Hey, man, you may win. Hey, you know a judge. So,
hey.
Exactly.
Hey, I don't even care. I'm going to submit anyway.
As we close this out, we want to close, as I said, ladies and gentlemen, John was kind enough to volunteer his time for Israel Appreciation Day. Actually flew to Vegas. I did forget his piano, but we did finally correct that problem. He's like, Robert, where's the piano? I'm like, I was supposed to get a piano, but in any event, we corrected the problem. A little bit of panic. And you were kind enough with Dave Eggers, who also Grammy nominated cellist, was just wonderful to come out. Yeah. It was all about extolling and elevating and educating about Israel. And you did 2 songs. I want to close out with showing everyone your song, okay, but maybe you can do the intro, John, as to what this song really is about. I know we touched on it in the show, but I'd like you to do the intro, and then Lord Redic, if you are you have it teed up, it's a nice way to end the segment with you, John, and I want to thank you again for coming on.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate you fighting the good fight every day. And okay, the theme is anything but. The theme is we're not okay, and we're not okay with allowing what's been happening in Israel. We've talked about the UN. We've talked about our college campuses. We've talked about members of Congress that are Hamas sycophants. And, you know, it's one thing to rail about it, but we have to stand up. You've seen the music industry be completely silent. It's a historic shame. Look, courage is contagious, but so is cowardice. So I choose the one to be on the right side of history. And what this song is about is telling that fact that we're not okay. And if people are silent, the end of the video I made to OK is Martin Luther King's quote, "Silence in the face of evil is complicity. Don't be complicit. Do the right thing."
Thank you.
We are not okay. This is a time for choosing
This is a time to mourn. The moral man is losing, forbidden, lost, forlorn. I don't understand how you can look yourself in the mirror. I don't understand how does that blood spill from your eyes? And we are not. We are not. You hide behind your babies. You hide behind your kin. The Harvarders have rabies. They'd Holocaust again. No, I don't understand how you can love yourself in the mirror. I don't understand how does that blood fill up your eyes? Then we are not. Oh, we are not. Evil's on the march, time to face the task at hand. Yes, evil's on the march, need every good woman, every good man. So stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. We are not. Okay, okay,
That song is
God
so
bless.
sad. Yes. Oh, hold on, Robert. Oh, there we go. I got you back. Here we go.
I said, is John still with us?
I booted him out. I thought that was
You
the
booted
end.
him out.
I
All
booted
right.
him out. He's still back
Really? He's been kicked out of better places than this?
there. I guess I just assumed that was such a good place to put the end.
No, so
interview.
John's comment is it came out so great, and I agree. And by the way, thank you, Lord Redic, for doing the cutting on short notice in Vegas, ladies and gentlemen. There's a whole backstory to that. But
That's funny.
again, our thanks to John Ondrasik, Fight for Fighting, for taking time
Yes.
to come talk about us. A lot of things.
Yes.
Most important is music matters challenge.
Yes.
So go to the website. All right,
Go to the
Ericka, so-
website and go to the like button and go to the subscribe button and the notifications bell and share it with your friends. Okay, go ahead, Robert. What you got?
So in close, I mean, it's hard to have a following act after that and close out. So
I know, right?
I almost feel I just want to end the show right on that.
Well,
note,
hold
but It
on.
was so powerful, but
Well, if you want, I can give you a transition.
transition me.
Okay,
Well,
you
don't
ready?
transition me. Wait. Don't transition me. Wait. But
Can you hear Lord
how about a
Benjamin
segue?
laughing in the background?
Can you give me a segue instead of a transition?
I'll give you a segue. Yes, that
Thank you.
that word is forever ruined now. Why do they have to ruin language all the time? Ah!
Well, excuse me. You just gave me a segue. Speaking of language, right?
All right.
We now have the thought police, right?
Oh,
John mentioned it in his piece that where after the CBS did the interview with Secretary of State Rubio, they then went to three, and I don't even know who these people were. I didn't catch the whole interview, but three people from Germany who basically said that if you insult someone or if you post a meme that's offensive, right, defined by whom, you can go to jail. So play this clip really quickly. We only want, we don't have much time. I just want to play this clip a little bit. But you want something that is chilling to me? This is chilling.
Okay, hold on. Wait a second. Is this the Vance clip?
No, this is the other clip.
Germany. There it is. I see it.
Is it a crime to insult somebody in public?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
And it's a crime to insult them online as well?
Yes.
The fine could be even higher if you insult someone in the internet.
Why?
Because in internet, it stays there. If we are talking here face to face, you insult me, I insult you, okay, finish. But if you in the internet, if I insult you or a politician,
That sticks around forever.
yeah.
The prosecutors explain German law also prohibits.
That is freaking wild.
So Ben and I would talk about, and I'm trying to remember the Tom Cruise movie Minority Report about pre-crime, right? So you're like one step away from pre-crime. So this is now essentially thought police. And I go back to the UN Declaration of Universal Human Rights. And one of the things that they say, let me find my little notes here. One of the things that they say.
Where's my chair?
Yeah, no, you're going to love this. Well, you're not going to love this. You're going to hate this. Oh, well, first of all, and this is a segue. One of the things that the Universal Human Rights from the United Nations says is that parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education that should be given to their children. I know that's not the free speech angle, but
I don't believe that.
Well, that's the thing. They're full of shit, right? I mean, that's the thing. Article 18 of the UN Universal Human Rights says the following.
Okay, I'm ready.
Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Right? And then Article 19 says everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. So if the world community prays at the altar of the United Nations, which they clearly do, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the United Nations that has these banal sounding documents or words that they don't follow.
Yeah.
Is there any wonder why we have the conflict we do? Except, by the way, the only place that this doesn't apply, it applies to everyone except one place, Israel. Right?
Yeah.
So,
well,
I'm
that's
still
the thing.
looking
I
for
don't know. It's if you are white or white adjacent, you are required to just give over your land, your property. You are expected to be abused because you're a bigot, because of your skin color, and because of your success. So I don't know what your problem is, Robert. How dare you?
I just want consistency and not hypocrisy. Where's the come on, where's the outrage? Right? So you have a document, which, by the way, I'm looking for the small print, like the fine print. I know I have glasses on, but there's always small print and shit like this where you can kind of go, okay. So I'm looking for the small print that says applies to all countries except Israel and what'd you call it, white and white adjacent cultures?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, And I printed out the copy. It goes to what? Article 25, Article 26.
Well, here's the thing. It's nonsense as soon as China is on like the Human Rights Commission. Okay?
Article 28.
Like
Article
this is the
29.
thing. They have no legitimacy. And they haven't had any legitimacy for years. Again, if China, who has, who enslaves Uyghur Muslims, who does a whole bunch of other things, I don't know if I can say on the internet without getting a community guideline strike. Okay.
Oh, don't. Hey, 3 strikes and you're
Euthanizing
out.
little girls for decades. That's true. We know that. They literally euthanize their children. Like, how did they get on the Human Rights Council? Okay, the UN is, no, I'm done. I was done with them in like the 80s when that happened. 90s? Was that under Bill Clinton?
Under Bill Clinton in 1990. So under Bill Clinton, let's go back, right? I mean, Richard Nixon opens diplomatic relationships with China, the first U.S. president to go to China. But it was Bill Clinton, and I want to say it was 1996, that allowed China into the World Trade Organization, and that sort of was the game changer. Of course, those of us are old enough to remember, Johnny Wong, the Buddhist temple fundraising, and Charlie Tree, and all the money that came in from China, soft money into the U.S. elections for Bill and Hillary Clinton. So, and again, folks, don't believe me, go look it up.
And it looks like 2006 is when they were first added to the Human Rights Council. So
right.
Give me an all the way break.
But the entree into sort of the world of nations or the nations of the world was their entrance into the WTO, which was engineered or brought about by the Clinton administration under Bill Clinton in his second term.
Yep. Golly, the Clintons. I'm very happy with my life. I'm not planning on taking it. Neither is Robert that I'm aware of. So Clintons, okay, leave us alone. Leave us alone.
You don't want to start, man. I mean, you want to talk about a community strike? If we start getting into that, they will pull us off the air. But there used to be a website called Arkancide, ARKANCIDE, which used to be pages and pages and pages of things having to do with Arkansas and the Clintons, which has now been whitewashed and pulled down. But can't imagine why.
We need that. Well, the Democrats, they manifest democracy. I don't know if you knew that.
I will make a prediction.
Tell me.
That before the Trump administration is done with Doge and is done unearthing all the pay to play and where the monies were going, that the Clintons are going to be pulled into this, because we all know that the Clinton Foundation was getting money from, now it might be through USAID. I don't know. I don't have that kind of knowledge or security clearance, but I will bet you, can I say all the tea in China?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So this is what, when you told me democracy was bureaucracy, when you did your monologue, when we were talking about it, it made me think of this. So
what is that?
Everyone needs it.
What is it?
Democracy Manifest. And he didn't appreciate.
Am I missing something?
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
Do you want to explain that to me?
The way he was handled.
Hello. Okay. I know.
Oh, I'm muted. My bad. It's some video. I don't even know what this is.
So this goes to show you that on the cuff, you shouldn't do things on the cuff.
No, it's great. Everybody needs to watch this video because it's ridiculous. It's this man getting arrested for some nonsense or whatever, and he gives the most epic speech, and they cannot get him into the cop car. It's amazing. And he's like, Democracy Manifest. And it's freaking fantastic. I'm putting a link in the comments. Y'all need to go watch it.
I think you should put a link in the comments. And I saw, speaking of comments, I believe we had a comment during the show or two, did we not?
We did. Joe Cilio.
Joe Cilio.
After Japan surrendered after World War II, we helped them develop an economic force. We should do the same in Gaza. I'm telling you what, bro. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know why everybody's hating on it.
Look, my guess is Gaza. First of all, thank you, Joe Celio, for that question or comment. My guess is that it will be some sort of international protectorate. I'm not sure, the U.S. will play a part. I'm not sure it's going to be U.S. property. I would love for it to be.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, as long as Hamas is eliminated,
yeah,
it's a start in the right direction. And yes, that property or that land in Judea, and let's call it what it is, right? It's Judea and Samaria. That would be Judea. I just watched Ben-Hur, by the way, Judah Ben-Hur. So if you've never seen it, you want to understand the history of that, watch that. But it will be, it is the area is gorgeous if it's developed properly. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, if people don't want to just murder each other, imagine what could happen.
Oh my God, Ericka.
Oh my God, what kind of economic prosperity could you have if you didn't just want to murder everybody? Anyway.
Where can they find us, Ericka? It's time to rock and roll.
You guys can find us anywhere that you download your podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple, all of the places. Okay. We're on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Instagram.
Like us,
Facebook.
Follow us. Don't like us. Leave nasty comments and we'll respond if you've got big gabayons. But
hey,
other
all
than
the
that,
engagement counts.
Again, to our special guest, John Ondrasik, Fire for Fighting. Thank you for coming on. What a great show. Ericka.
Yes.
We will see you and everyone else next week.